Story time, hey, what's up? It's story time. I'm ready. Story time. Yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Yanta. And today's video will be the first in the beginning of the series Fighting Yanta Tania. It's really just a story time or storytelling or a recap about the past 6 years for me and how I started with the whole faith walk and up to this moment. So if you don't know, I was born and raised in the beautiful island of Haiti. No matter what nobody tells you, that's the truth. Haiti is a beautiful island, and of course, like a lot of places that goes through hard time, and like most countries and most people, you travel to the United States for a better life. While I was only about 11 years old then, I didn't even know what that meant. As a matter of fact, I hated the fact that I needed to come here. I cried and I felt like I was being punished because I had to leave what I knew behind. I had to leave my friends behind, my church family, my schools, etc. And moved to a place that although we used to travel all the time, that I didn't know anybody new. Anyways, we get here and we're pursuing a better life. And I did all my middle school here. I learned English through Disney Channel. Went to high school here. Went to like 3 different high school. Went to Edgewater for my freshman, sophomore year. Events for my junior year, and I graduated from Winter Park High School. Wildcats. Wow. And after high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, like every kid know exactly what they want to do when they grow up. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to help people, and I've always had a heart to help people. And at first I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but as you get older you hear different stories about like how lawyers are liars and they have to lie in court. So I'm Seventh Adventist by religion, and so Adventists can't be lawyers. So that was like, okay, well, we ruled that out. And then I thought I wanted to go to the military, but it wasn't until after I graduated high school 2007 that I learned because of some limits in my immigration status, I wouldn't be able to be qualified for financial aid, and therefore wouldn't be able to fund going to college. So I didn't go to college for that reason. So right after high school, I ended up moving. Maybe a year after high school, I ended up moving to New York, and I lived there for about 2 years. There, I had my first job at a private school that ran, I think, pre-K all the way to I think second grade. I got hired there as a teacher's assistant for the pre-K classrooms, but then I would also help during lunchtime to help some of the teachers for other classroom, to take a break. So I often would go to the kindergarten classroom. One class in particular, though, I was always there. So eventually that teacher became an administrator in the school, and they thought since I was always in that classroom, I knew the curriculum well, and the kids were used to me, that I was the best fit to, in a way, play teacher. I say play teacher like because I was technically not qualified to teach. I didn't have the credentials is the proper term, I guess, but I taught that class. The kids love me, I love them. I had worked with kids before. I had babysat a lot, so I enjoyed that. And then they eventually hired a teacher, but because I was already doing the curriculum, so we decided the teacher would be the other person they hired, who technically was the one who would be qualified, was gonna assist until they got used to her, and then we were gonna switch role. Then I was gonna be her assistant. Unfortunately, there was some political things happening at the school, and I felt like it wasn't right. And when they called me to talk to me about it and They wanted me to apologize for something I didn't do, and I didn't think that was right. So they gave me an ultimatum, and they were like, well, it's either you apologize or thank you for working here. So I shook their hand back and said, thank you for having me. And they looked at me like, what? Is she really walking out? Yeah, I was 19 at the time, guys. I didn't know any better. Do I regret it? No, I don't, because that was one of the first time I stood up for what was true and what was right, and that was wrong. I'm not even gonna go into detail about that because this is not what this episode is about. So after, being in high school, being having that job, and then, enjoying, I think I worked there, I want to say for, I don't know, 9 months maybe. um I was one of the best teachers they had. I am certain about it. But it also taught me how skillful I was and how good I enjoy working with kids. And I took that with me. After that, I think spent some months trying to find new jobs, and somehow I think one Saturday at church I heard they were talking about cooperating job and how it's like the most difficult ministry, and I wanted to know like why was it that, and they had some recruiters trying to recruit new, students for the program. It was called Light America Youth Challenge. So I decided I was gonna join them, and I did. I applied, I joined them, and I became a co-porter. I had to stay in the dorm room with um the other students. It was a co-ed house. And I met some cool people. I met some crazy people. I had to go and try to sell books. That didn't go very well because I was never really good at selling. What I learned there was kind of like the art of approaching people, putting yourself out there in a way in ministry. Because when I wasn't able to sell books, I would offer prayers to some of those people at the doors, and people would break down and cry and tell you their whole life story, and that began to like touch me in a different way because it's like, yo, there's people out there who's like hurting. So that put a really big mark on what ministry was for me and what doing things purposely means. Anyways, I didn't stay there at the in the program the full length of how long I was supposed to be there because I ended up moving back home to Orlando. And moving back home to Orlando is where the heaviness of not being able to go to college really started dawning on me, because I wasn't able to find a new job when I got back home. And I spent months being home and applying to different jobs. Nobody's calling, and I didn't have a lot of experiences. Um, so eventually, I think I worked at Reebok for a couple of months. That was good, but they ended up closing down. I think I worked at a debt collection agency. I didn't last a month. Not because they fired me, because I wasn't able to call people and harass them about debt that's like years old that they couldn't afford to pay. So I quit. Um, and then I ended up going to working for a broker's office at, I think I can say at Rosen Hotel in Orlando. They own a company, broker's company. And originally, when I applied to work over there, I was supposed to be doing something else, but that position required me for me to work on Saturdays, so I couldn't because I'm Seventh Adventist. And they liked me so much at the interview that they decided that they were gonna keep me as a HR floater. It's a new position. It's not even a real position, but it's something that they wanted to try out because they needed someone to come and the admin side of things when people have breaks, or when people have days off, or when people have vacations, that someone would just go in and hold on the fort for a little bit. So that's what I ended up doing. I floated maybe to two different places, one for a week. Actually, I think I floated to one place at first. I was there for a week or two, and then I floated to the broker's office at one of their location, and I got there, and the person who was my boss at the time decided that she's been sent a lot of help, but she hasn't found one like me. And so she was like, "You're smart, you do your work well, you understand." And she just fell in love with me. I was there for a week and she was in love with me. She kept saying all these things to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, it's almost like I didn't believe her, but it's like I don't understand, like, why would somebody come and not do their job? I was just happy that, I got to work at a cool office, and I was the youngest, and I get to do my job, dress up and go to work. You know what I mean? So she would like literally call the office every week to ask them to not remove me, like the HR, to not move me to another place to float because she needed the help and I was doing my work. And it continued that way for a really long time, to the point that HR like knew who I was, and I didn't know this, but it was great. And then eventually she started fighting for me to have a more permanent position, and she trained me. She was like the best boss I think I had ever had. Like, she was smart, and she was one of those hardworking women. Um, and she believed in her team. And eventually, when she hired, our department became like a full solid team. And my coworker, who was more qualified than me, I had to train them, and that was weird for me. And but we got along so well, and she just groomed us so good. Like, she trained us, and she would always tell me that you're smart, that you're very intelligent. Like, when you they teach you something, you get it the first try, and once you get it, you get it. And to be honest, hearing that from her was the first time I got to hear that I was intelligent, because I felt slow sometime in high school, especially here, because like I didn't pass the English FCAT on the first try. So that was really cool to have heard from someone else. And that's also where I learned that I have visual edited memory or something like that, because somebody mentioned it to me. Because I've always had issue with remembering things, especially when I was in Haiti, and the way they did the lesson. It's like your studying is really just memorizing, and I could not always memorize. I was good with math because it's formula, plug it in, 1 plus 1 will always equal 2. But trying to remember, the history of everything, I just couldn't. So I thought that made me slow for that reason. But having working there, I learned so much about myself. Like, that I learned my work ethic. I learned my when I'm determined to do something, how good I am at it. I learned, I don't know, I learned so much about me as a hard worker, because I had this opportunity to rise up to the occasion, and show up in a boss that kept investing in me mentally by always telling me that um I could, and telling me that I was intelligent, but also who fought for me. Like, her and her boss, like, she will go in and she will fight for her team, to the point sometimes we will tell her like, you need to chill, because we're not trying to have you get fired, because if you're not here, we're not staying. There was always back and forth, and there was always a lot of fights, and a lot of standing up for us and all of that, and it was always an issue. And I personally felt like the president of the department, personally felt like they were intimidated by her, because I feel like she made them feel less than often by the way she spoke to them. But she was really smart. Of course, eventually she got fired, and that left the department with me and my coworker holding down the fort for the whole, what we handle, health brokers insurance. So our clients, let's say our clients were like Coca-Cola. That's just an example. We didn't have Coca-Cola as a client. We will handle the benefit packages for them, and I was the person to get them printed, get the packages done, get them ready for enrollment presentation. And when they get back to us and they're all filled out, I will go through them, put them in their system, put them in the spreadsheet, and put them in, organize them into their folders and put them away. When there's changes, me and my coworker will go back and forth to do those type of things. It was tedious work. It was a lot of hands-on work, but that was okay for me because I was the admin for the department, and I was okay with that. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. It helps me realize how organized I prefer things and things like that. So I love my job. Obviously, but she fought for us to become for me to become full time, and I had my own little desk, my own little office, my own little phone number, my own little email, where like my friends will sometimes jokingly call my line just to hear me say thank you for calling da da da. This is Yanta. How can I help you? Although I can see their number on the area code, on the, what is that called, the caller ID, like I still have to enter that way, so they will purposely do that to me. So I enjoyed that job, and I thought I was going to work my way up the ladder in that company, and I was gonna, I don't know, become somebody, because originally the plan was to be a lawyer. I was going to get rich and buy a big house and put all the poor people in it. That was my way to help people. Um, Eventually, by the time I was working at that company through Rosen, um, I had decided I wanted to do social work, and I had started to try to go to school, but life happened, bills happened, and I couldn't pay the rest of the school, so I had to stop that. So that was hard. I think somewhere around the line, after my boss got fired, a lot of people were graduating, getting new jobs and things like that, and I started realizing like, whoa, now that my boss is gone, we're stressed, we're trying to hold on the fort together. um I guess the validation that I was getting, and that the mental part, or even the enjoyment that we're getting with her being here, wasn't the same now that we're stressed and trying to hold down our whole department by ourselves until they hired somebody new. Made me start no longer enjoying the job. And um obviously I was underpaid, and didn't realize how underpaid I was until somebody else in the department quit. They hired somebody to replace them with more money, and when they came, they were like overwhelmed with the amount of work that needs to be done, and we're looking at them like, you're the one with the high degrees who getting paid all this money, and this is overwhelming. We're holding it down by ourselves. So and even then, I didn't realize how underpaid I was. But they hired a new boss, and I hated her. Well, maybe hate is a strong word. I highly disliked her so much that I had negative thoughts about her all the time. I don't know. There was something about her that seemed to be a little prejudiced. I won't say racist, but definitely prejudiced. There were comments that were made to me and about me that we even had I even had to go to the boss. Even called me in when they heard about it to ask me how I feel about it, but I never heard it from her. Somebody told me that she said that behind my back. And I just didn't like her. So I already was stressed. I didn't like my job. I was feeling unfulfilled. I was feeling unpurposeful. I was not helping people, it felt like, anymore. And I hate my new boss, and I just wanted to do something different, and I kept saying I'm not staying. And it got bad that I wasn't sleeping. I was falling asleep on the wheel, almost getting into a car accident. And I think what really did it for me is that I had turned 25, and I don't know, I guess I had a quarter life crisis, when it's like I don't like it here anymore. But I think what really did it was when one day my chest started hurting, and when I called the nurse, they were like, it sounds like you're having a heart attack. And I'm like, But ma'am, I'm only 25. They was like, yeah. So I came in, they did, I think, is it an EKG or whatever? And they was like, it doesn't look like you're having a heart attack. You just may be having a heart attack, like symptoms. And I'm like, what would cause that? They was like, you're probably stressed. I'm like, stressed? They was like, yeah, stress can actually kill you. So that was like a big wake up call for me, because it's like, what? So she was like, whatever is it that's stressing you out, I would consider it. I hope you reconsider it, because you're very young and blah blah blah. So that's when I think I started really looking at stuff differently. I started applying for different jobs, but I wasn't getting them within the company, and I low-key felt like they were blocking me because there was so much turnaround in our department that they didn't want me to leave. And I just started praying a lot, and as I started praying, I kept feeling like the one thing that kept coming back and forth or over that kept repeating itself was take a leap of faith, take a leap of faith, take a leap of faith. And I didn't really know what that meant, but somewhere I started listening to, I think, Heather Lindsay, and she was talking about being led by the Holy Spirit. And I think Priscilla Shire was talking about, I don't remember what the sermon was, but somewhere it just felt like that leap of faith was regarding my job, and I needed to not be there anymore, and I had to do that by faith. So I think I decided that I was going to resign, since I couldn't find a job yet, but I needed to take a leap of faith. So I was going to resign. And then my sports were getting on my nerves. And excuse me. I needed to resign. And I think I came up with a date based on an event that was happening around that time. I want to say my cousin was getting married, and I decided I was going to resign right before that and not come back. So I think that's what I did, and I had like a 3 weeks notice. The 3 weeks came, and they received my letter. HR, like, my mom was working for the same company, and HR, who knew her, called her and told her. No, before that, this is how two things I knew how HR knew my name was. One time I went to a health benefit, and it was like, hey, Yanta. I'm like, you know my name? They was like, yeah, aren't you the young lady that so and so is always calling in for, doesn't want to leave? I said, oh, okay. But and then the second part was, after I turned in my letter, one of the top boss people that when you see her, there's trouble. So I just happened to be taking a walk, and then she was like, hey, Yanta. I said, hey, Miss So-and-so. And I'm confused, like, why does she know my name? She was like, I heard you resigning. And I'm like, huh? How do you know that? She was like, we just happened to have had a meeting, and we happened to, it came up. I was like, oh, yeah. And I was so confused, like, why does she know my name and know how I look like? Anyway, so HR calls my mom, and my mom calls my phone like, I hear you quitting, and she's not happy about it. And I'm like, yeah. And they were trying to have her to ask me to reconsider if there's an issue going on with the boss and blah blah blah. I should talk to HR and call them if I would revoke my resignation. So I called back HR, and I told them it's more than just my boss. She's just one of the person who made it clear that I no longer want to be here, and I've applied across the border, but you guys rejected all my applications. So I just don't think this fit me anymore, and I want to pursue something different. I want to pursue something towards what I feel like I've always should have been doing, helping people, and this doesn't feel like I'm doing that.